The MCU is back with Loki, their third TV series on Disney Plus, and once again, we see they are definitely embracing the opportunity to explore more long-form storytelling with this ambitious and weird premiere. So let's go ahead and dive in and discuss. Welcome to the MCU Pod, a companion podcast to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm your host, Grant Davis, and with me, we're joined once again by comics and TV expert Randy Lander of the TV Dudes and Rogue Gallery podcast.
Hello, hello.
And we're also joined by our friend and resident lawyer for the pod, Elliott Fontanette.
How y'all doing?
Did you pay Elliott $1? Did you
no.
give Elliott $1?
No.
Oh, well, then there's no confidentiality to this podcast. I guess that's okay since we're broadcasting on YouTube.
Is it $1? Is that?
Apparently, if you've gone to high school with me, I have to give you legal advice. So
this is how it works.
If you went to high school with me, you have to ask me if I buy any comics and how much they're worth.
And how far is your store from Austin? That's the next thing.
Great,
Randy, I definitely have questions for you.
Great, you're broadcasting from inside the TVA this week, right?
If I'm glitchy, yes, that's what's going on. I happen to be in Puerto Rico right now, and I thought, well, we'll see how the internet goes. So if this is spotty, apologies. But I was able to catch that episode of Loki, and I was like, I do want to talk about this because that was super good. So before we jump into all that, if you guys are watching here on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and you can follow us at youtube.com/MCU Pod if you're just listening to us on the podcast. We do record audio podcasts, and we do video. We do live video. We would love to have you guys join us on here. If you do join and you want to have your comments read, you can type POD in the comments, and we'll see that over on the side, and we'll prompt and put them up on the screen. You can also rate and review us over on Apple, and you can help support our little show over on patreon.com/MCU Pod. And I added some new tiers. So if you want to join the West Coast Avengers, it's only $1 a month. If you want to join the Fantastic Four, it's $4 a month. And then, the Illuminati, I think, is going to be like $20 a month if you want to really join that. But if you want to go to patreon.com/MCU Pod, there you can make a per episode pledge, and we appreciate all of your support. All right. Got that out of the way. I think it is time for us to dive into this week's episode, this premiere episode. Glorious Purpose is the first episode of Loki, written by Michael Waldron and directed by Kate Herron. And the synopsis for this episode is: Loki, the god of mischief, finds himself out of time and in an unusual place and forced against his godly disposition to cooperate with others. Now, we start this episode the same way we start all of our episodes, with some snap judgments. Elliott, you want to take us away? What's your snap judgment?
My snap judgment is it was good. I don't know if it was as good as everybody's saying it was. That's what I got so far.
Why? You want to elaborate?
Well, I'm sort of waiting to see what else happens. I think the big thing is I'm sort of biased because I really don't like the set design because I hate that era of design. So it was like hard for me to watch. Like, whereas my wife loves that era of design, and she's just like, oh my God. And I'm just like, it's so ugly. But in terms of like, it's an evocative story. And I really like the way that Owen Wilson's character, Agent Mobius, is playing off of Loki. It's almost like Loki, he had like the power of, they have the term like plot armor, so you always survive. He had writer's armor. They gave him like the best lines. They always made him look smart, and it's like they just pulled that shit away from him. And it's like, oh no, you're normal now. So if you watch TVA, none of that shit works. He's like, oh, you're a big metaphor guy. It makes you seem really smart. Go ahead. And it's just the perfect, because like this is like something I almost like. I'm sort of thinking about showing my son, like if he's ever dealing with like a bully. Like this is how you deal with a bully. You just sort of make fun of them just a little bit to where they won't beat you up, but they sort of go, "You're more trouble than you're worth." So it's like Agent Mobius is sort of going, "Oh no, you wanted to stand up." It's like, well, now the moment's ruined. It's like, okay, well, sit down. I'm like, I'll do what I want. I'm like, sure. Like that. It's so great how he's playing off of him, but at the same time, you can see Loki through the entire episode. The longer he's at the TVA, the more he's figuring them all out.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's already got a plan going. But this is going to be one of those shows. Thank you, Will. This is going to be one of those shows where I'm going to actively try not to figure out like everything that's going on, because part of the way I digest media is this is going to sound so horrible. I'm very lazy when it comes to digesting media, in that I don't really want to like try to guess this is going to happen. Most of the time in these intricate shows, like WandaVision, I was like, yeah, I'm going to look at every little clue. When you're trying to hide the ball like they are, I'm like, you know what? Just tell me what's going on. I'm just going to sit here.
I think that's fair. Randy, what about you?
I love this. I mean, no shocker there. I'm in the tank for the MCU, but I think as pilots go, as Marvel pilots go, it sits above WandaVision and below Falcon and Winter Soldier for me. But partly that's because Falcon and Winter Soldier is like the exact speed of Marvel that I love the most. It's like that's my favorite. The action adventure buddy comedy, like that's my thing. This sort of weird comedy adjacent thing is not as much my favorite. It's closer to like Thor Ragnarok and that kind of thing. That said, objectively, I think it might be a better pilot. It's such a good first episode. Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson are both at the top of their game. I actually love the production values. I love the sort of retro 60s look of the TVA. I think it's really cool. And I think that they did a good job of Hiddleston playing Loki as sort of this cocky, powerful bastard who also like gets his comeuppance. Like he's not stupid. He falls in line when he's like, oh, they'll kill me. I need to at least play ball a little bit. And also seeing that real vulnerability that he actually, for all his, I am the god of tricks, god of lies, I'm going to rule everything, I'm burdened with glorious purpose, that he is basically a sad kid who never got the love from his mom and his dad that he fully wanted, or his brother for that matter. And I think that undercutting him in that way, but also like not making him a bad character in that way, I think that was really just a really good way to end up the episode.
Well, and they're walking such a fine line, because it's like you don't want this guy to be too sympathetic at the beginning, because you want him to have an arc, but he can't be a flat out asshole. Right. Like one of the things they pointed out that I never noticed in any of the MCU, like, and I'm one of the two people that like we have jackets. It's a very exclusive club that really likes Thor: The Dark World. Like I actually really enjoyed that movie. I think of the last half. Yeah. I think of the last half is like the last half of Dark World is just a straight up comedy. Like it's more funny than actual action. But they said something where he actually ended up leading the Dark Elves up to his mom. Mm-hmm. And I never put that together. Now either that's a retcon or it's a subtle connection that was sort of always there, but they didn't really put it at the forefront, and it was something that you would probably notice in like a video essay. Mm-hmm. But either way, it makes that movie mean even more. It's like, oh man, you were trying to screw over your brother, you got your mom killed.
I agree. I'm not in your club of loving the Dark World as much as everybody else, but
not everybody can do.
But I think I had never caught that inference, and I don't think it's a retcon. I think if we go back and watch it, it'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, that tracks. But they didn't make it so explicit as they did here, and it really does work.
No, yeah, and I think it was very on purpose if they didn't make it explicit, because it's like that changes the tone of the entire movie, and it makes it harder to be like, well, why are you not dealing with that you caused your mom's death if we're noticing it up front? But later, now that we've gotten that scene in Endgame with Renee Russo's character, Thor and Loki's mom, where she has her heart-to-heart with him, what I like, my little theory, because knowing MCU, what's going to happen is Loki's going to get his own scene with the mother.
I think you're
right.
To
give him some hole, and it's probably going to be like right after Rocket and Thor leave. You're gonna have TVA Loki walk up and get his like.
And she's just like, wow, I have to do a lot of momming today right before I die.
I mean, that's pretty much isn't that sort of just being a parent? It's like, oh, you got something to do? Oh no, you got to deal with this first. But I'm about to die. Doesn't matter.
Ain't got time for that.
Their time travel. We should definitely talk about their time travel at some point too, because there's some interesting stuff about the way they're doing their time travel.
Yeah, definitely. From my part, I'm right there with you, Randy. I loved this right out the gate. I think that this is more my tempo alongside WandaVision in how it kind of delves into the weird, and it is just really kind of hamming it up and playful with it. And it also has this kind of X-Files vibe going on. There's something sinister in the background that if it's King the Conqueror, which we can get into, or if it's another version of Loki, or if it's someone else that is kind of manipulating the time stream, whoever it is, I'm all for Loki going up head to head with this person. I think it's fascinating. That, and of course the dynamic between him and Owen Wilson's Mobius character. All of it is so fun. I love the aesthetic. I love the pacing of this. That it takes its time introducing us to this world rather than I could have also seen this trying to go the other route of dropping Loki in and then giving him an assignment right away and like thrusting him into that. And I'd be like, no, that's a little bit too fast. I need time to breathe in what the TVA is, what this world is. And I really appreciated how it took its time there and still had a good hook for the next episode. We have a couple snap judgments here from our listeners. Our viewers. Wilmore says the show was visually stunning and completely unnecessary.
What does it mean unnecessary?
I think it's actually a compliment. Like if I had to guess, I think it's a compliment because it's like it's sort of saying you didn't have to go this hard. Like, you could have just had like an office, a drab office, but they do pepper in a lot of like movie quality, like movie level effects. You're like, no, this isn't a CW show. This when we turned it on, my wife was like, this is like Legends of Tomorrow if it was good. And I'm like, yeah, because you said this, Randy, years ago. You said Legends of Tomorrow is the best show from 1996 I've ever seen. And that's always stuck with me because that's what that show is.
Yeah.
This is, if you wanted to do like X-Files 90s sci-fi with a real budget, like it really put some money behind it. So yeah, it looks beautiful, but it didn't have to do all that.
Well, because they use a lot of footage from Thor and the Dark World, Avengers, and in order to do that, that means your current stuff has to match. It has to
you can't go down.
You can't. Yeah, you can't have it like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That it can't go to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like looking production values. So.
Right.
Oh, and I'll pick on that. Do we have another snap judgment? I don't want to.
Yeah. Kern says, love the episode. I'm even more confident now that it'll live up to my expectations. That'll be one of my favorite in the MCU TV shows.
I mean, I can see that because like it just feels like Kevin Feige and Marvel's just like they're not taking it for granted. They're really trying to knock every show out the park. And watching this is a bit of a swerve, but watching Coulson get that the spear through him, and then watching the stuff about the multiverse, like what if they just erased the entire what if they erased like everything from the fourth season on of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. out of continuity? You just have like a scene at the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where somebody from the TVA walks in because we got everything in the timeline.
I don't think they'll bother. It's already been erased.
I think they might. They're building an ending universe reason to erase this stuff.
I'm on record as believing that nobody at Marvel Cinematic gives any regard to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agent Carter. That they all consider that that Jeff Loeb's fan project.
No, Agent Carter. I think they do because they had Jarvis in Endgame.
But I think that was a nod. I think that's as far as we're ever going to get.
But a nod is something like.
It's true. It's true.
Actively, like besides was it Sif showed up and Nick Fury showed up in an episode.
Yeah.
But everything from season 3 on, it's been like whatever, man.
Did you see the Easter egg that people think Agent Carter was in the background at the TVA?
No.
In this episode? Oh yeah. I don't have the screenshot, but it does look a lot like her. So it's possible they had Haley Atwell or some lookalike trying to be like her in the background.
Well,
For what it's worth.
They're bringing up so many paradoxes because, like, if you have this one sacred timeline that they say they have, but you have Steve Rogers going back and living in an alternate timeline with Peggy at the end of Endgame. Wait a second, how we're allowing that? Is like, do you have to save the universe to get your timeline? Is that the rule?
Well, they see the perfect timeline, the sacred timeline is interesting because Loki calls it out. He's like, well, who makes that decision?
Mm-hmm.
And it's these timekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
They're already pointing out to us that, hey, the secret timeline is bullshit.
Okay.
That basically these three guys don't get to decide what the secret timeline is. Like, Loki's already like, this is bullshit. Yeah. And we know that Marvel's a multiverse. We know that the multiverse of madness is coming. We know that What If is coming. So whatever happens in this show, Marvel's a multiverse. It's not one timeline. So that's not going to stick. But I think it's interesting because they also, from minute one, I was like, wait a minute, you can't be putting this all on Loki. Like, the Avengers are the ones who time traveled, and gave him the opportunity to do this. And then I was like, and he calls it out. He's like, you don't go after the Avengers. And like, no, the Avengers time travel is okay. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you guys are playing with whatever rules. It's just you would say whatever rules you want.
They referred to the case of, well, fuck you. That's why. It's like that's the case that they referred him to. It's like, well, we just don't like you.
That was certainly my question. Like, what are the rules of what breaks the flow of time and what the sacred timeline is? They don't really make anything clear there.
Yeah,
but it's Marvel being very smart because one thing Marvel really wants to not do is write themselves in a corner. It's the reason that, and they don't want people to be able to pick apart too many of their movies, because like if you look at Infinity War, one of the things that drove me crazy with just how smart it was that they wrote it this way is they had Doctor Strange look forward and see, was it 14,605 alternate timelines, and they 1 in 1. And what that does is it makes you go, well, it takes all those questions of, well, why didn't Doctor Strange just take them back to Earth and they fought them all together? You got to take all that out now because, well, they wouldn't have won. Yep. Or maybe they would have beat Thanos, but his army would have destroyed the Earth. And, and like they're really trying to make sure that as they go through all this stuff, they're aiming at people like Grant. They're like, no, you're not going to pick our chapter. It's so ambiguous and so no rules that it's like they're like the anti-Nolan. They're like, look, we know the internet's smarter than us. We're not going to play that game.
I'll still pick it apart. So we have the timekeepers established in this cute little animation sequence. And this guy in the middle here, let me see if I can indicate him. This guy right here. Sure does look like this guy right here. King the Conqueror. Randy, could you explain who King the Conqueror is?
So King the Conqueror is a classic Avengers bad guy. He's got kind of a convoluted backstory. He's an descendant of Dr. Doom and Reed Richards somehow. He travels from the 31st century back to Egypt, becomes the Pharaoh Rama-Tut, which is where the Avengers, where the Fantastic Four first meets him. He has conquered Earth a couple times in modern day using his time travel technology. He's with a Thor villain. But basically, he's like a time traveler guy. He's a time traveling conqueror who rules the 31st century, got bored, and decided to come back and try to conquer the 20th century because it's harder. In the movies, all we know about him so far is he's played by the lead from Lovecraft Country, and they're going to do something pretty different with him. He's showing up in an Ant-Man movie. So I have a feeling to do something quite different with him. So interestingly, there is a comic book tie-in to the Timekeepers and to Immortus, who is a version of Kang. He's like the good version. Kang eventually matures and becomes the ruler of Limbo, this other dimension, and he's named Immortus. The Timekeepers somehow are related to Immortus. They were like at war with Immortus a little bit. So there's a little bit of a side Kang thing, but if they decide to make one of these guys Kang, it's a pretty big departure.
Okay. There's also this idea. Actually, I haven't read this idea. I'm assuming other people have had this idea as well. That the place that they're in, if the TVA exists within the world and yet somehow outside of it, it does seem possible that where they are is actually the quantum realm.
Right.
And that this exists very tiny in the quantum realm, and that they're able to jump from there into the time stream to adjust things, because the quantum realm technically should kind of exist in and also kind of outside of time, and then time flow would be weird there.
That's true.
And it
that
could
would
be
make
that
sense.
Kang has his little bottle universe, right?
Yeah, that would
in
make,
which
that would
case
make a lot of
this
sense.
ties in Ant-Man as well.
Yeah, because we know Quantumania is.
I think
the
that
Ant-Man
yeah. So I'm thinking that's kind of where we're at. So what do you guys think of Owen Wilson's character, Mobius?
I love
Mobius
Mobius and Mobius. Owen Wilson just killed it as his character. He's very obscure in the comics. He shows up in like a couple issues of Fantastic Four. He is based on Mark Gruenwald, one of the legendary editors at Marvel, and basically all the people who work for the TVA are supposed to be clones of him. And he's just sort of a bureaucrat in the comics. Here he is like the guy who's always one step ahead of Loki, and also weirdly like a therapist. Didn't you guys get kind of a therapist vibe from him, the way he was dealing with Loki?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, he needs Loki to be functional. Mm-hmm. He's like, I want to break you down a little bit so I can work with you. I don't need you full like Avengers like movie God Prince level. We don't need that, but we need you to be a little bit focused. So he breaks him down, and because like if you watch it, he didn't really need him to see his own death. I don't think.
No,
he was like trying to just get him to his mom dying. I think that was where he wanted to take him.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'll build you up from there. But I think it's my favorite part of the show. I mean, I've always been a big Owen Wilson fan, but I think this is probably one of my favorite roles he's done. It's just, I think it's perfect for him, especially to play off Tom Hiddleston, because Tom Hiddleston is always seen as so smart, and right or wrong, Owen Wilson has been seen as sort of a himbo a lot of the time. And so to have Owen Wilson's character completely just put him off balance of like, oh, I don't care that you think you're smart. That's awesome. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about your Infinity Stone. None of it matters, because it's like his character is so emblematic of the TVA. He's like, I'm outside of all of this bullshit. I'm just to the side. I don't care about all your schemes. It's a show for me. So thank you for the show, but you can keep talking if you want.
Did you guys get the sense that Mobius is a bit jaded by the TVA, that he's been there so long that he kind of is eager for an escape? He wants something to kind of shake things up and change it, in which case he might have maybe sinister motivations as far as the TVA is concerned, but we also don't know if the TVA is a good and pure organization in itself.
I don't get sinister. I think I get more of a I think he's more of a career bureaucrat. He's been at this job so long, and he's seen how the bureaucracy just gets in the way of doing things. So he's like, "Fuck your rules. I'm going to recruit Loki. Like I know how to get things done."
No, you're completely right, because he's the guy that's been in that bureaucracy so long. He understands that it's going to take so much to fire him. He's like, "Look, by the time you're going to try to fire me, you're going to have to give me like 5 warnings. So I'm just going to do what I want until I get popped a few times." And he's that guy that's been in the job for like 20 years. He knows everybody. He maybe should have been promoted, but he got passed over. But instead of moving on, he's just the guy that's like, okay, well, I'll just collect a paycheck and sort of be an ass to everybody else for a little bit and just be sort of funny and do what I want. Okay.
There's only a little. We only see a little bit of her character, but is it Gugu Mbatha Raw who plays the judge? Is she she's the judge, right? There's a playfulness between her and Owen Wilson where I get the sense that basically she's sort of his superior, but also that that they have sort of a flirtatious thing going a little bit. And I'm curious to see where that relationship goes. But also interesting, Gugu Mbatha Raw's name is Ravonna Renslayer. Ravonna is Kang's longtime girlfriend. I did not catch that until I just now looked.
Oh, well. It seems to me that when we see Mobius investigating the crime scene in that church, where he sees the stained glass picture. Yeah, here we go.
Mephisto.
Right
I would like to remind everyone that Mephisto was the boat in Falcon and Winter Soldier. We've already seen Mephisto. It was the boat.
It's been established. That he's saying that we still don't know who this person is. Right. So when he says at the very end of the episode to Loki that who they're chasing is Loki, are we in agreement that that was more motivated by what he thinks will drive Loki to investigate this? Because Loki would love nothing more than to try and hunt himself down.
No, I think
he's a narcissist.
I think it's 100% a different version of Loki.
Yeah, me too.
I'm 100%. You know, we've seen that. We've seen the trailer of Loki, like wearing the vote Loki button. It looks like he basically is his. I don't think that's our Loki betraying the TVA. I think Loki and Loki are working against each other. We're gonna get Tom Hiddleston playing two versions of the character. One who's like more of a redemption arc, and one of whom is still on his villain arc.
Oh, see, I disagree. I don't think it's going to be two Tom Hiddlestons. Just because the last few years they've sort of messed around with the idea of a female Loki.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's going to be a female Loki, and that way, if you establish that Loki could be different beings, then you can bring in Kid Loki for the new Avengers.
This is true. Good point. And we know they're got to be building the Young Avengers. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I can see like a female Loki, and it's going to be like I think that I just don't think that Marvel would waste an opportunity.
That's a good point.
That's weird to hear. That's a good point on the internet.
Okay. Well, I think isn't it Sophia DiMartino they've cast and they haven't they've cast her, but they haven't said who she's playing, and she can easily play a female Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah.
So
because if you look at what they're doing with these TV shows, they're either trying to progress their characters, or especially like even like Black Widow, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Because it's like we're gonna get rid of Captain America, but here's your new Captain America, and we're going to get rid of Vision, but here's your new Vision.
Mm-hmm.
And, Loki died, but here's the TVA Loki.
Yeah.
So, like, they're trying to, like... And it's
well, specifically on...
Okay, sorry.
Specifically in this episode, they do make note that Loki is gender fluid on the form. Mm-hmm. So, that... Yeah.
I mean...
So, it does stand to reason.
I mean, if you're a race of gods, like, I mean, I could see you being able to switch back and forth if that was, like, that could be just on command.
Well, we're going to get female Thor in Love and Thunder, which I know is a different character, but it is sort of establishing that the Asgardians are not as tied to one gender or the other.
Oh my God, if this happens, I'm just going to camp out for like a good 2 days in front of Twitter and YouTube. And just watch people explode. It's going to be wonderful because like right now, a lot of that crowd, and I like this trailer too, but a lot of that crowd is really happy at the He-Man trailer.
Yeah.
So like they're having their little time right now. They're having a moment. Yeah. But man, if that gets established, they're going to be so mad. It's going to be good.
So do you guys think that the TVA is good or bad?
I think the TVA in comics, what represented was editors and bureaucracy and the sort of the strictures of continuity and how it could be a good thing, but it could be a handcuff. And I think that's ultimately what we're going to see here is that these guys basically are the ultimate bureaucracy. They're trying to keep the timeline from being chaotic, but losing that chaotic means you lose all the fun. And I think Loki's the perfect character to make that point with. That it's like, yeah, maybe everything's a little dangerous and maybe things will be a little more crazy, but that's probably better for everybody, even if it means there's a little bumps now and then.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm going to build off of that. Like, I'm going to add a little wrinkle because maybe it's that, you know how they said that, Avengers was supposed to happen. Like they were supposed to go back in time. The fact that Loki hasn't been reset at this point, maybe the timekeepers are like, look, you don't, even though you take our dictations, we still have designs beyond you.
Right.
And Loki could be a means to that end of like, he was meant to come here because like they explained in Endgame, well, this has happened now. This is now your past. He's a part of your timeline. Even if he's a variant, he's now affecting everything. So like maybe that was meant to happen. And I I really do want there to be an end for Loki. Not necessarily end, but I want him to get to like at least some kind of happiness.
Yeah,
he's already reached sort of an actualization in the main timeline in Ragnarok, and especially in the beginning of Infinity War. I want him to reach it again here and get some kind of a like peace. Maybe he just lives a life as DB Cooper. I don't know. Peaceful.
So in the chat, Rich Murphy has a good point that I want to talk about, because he wants to know what happens if a branch passes the red line, and it's pretty clear from the way that Owen Wilson talks to that kid that when they set off those little whatever they call, not the pruning is destruction, but whatever they call those resets, that they are destroying that timeline. Like the way he's talking to that kid, I'm like, oh, so you're basically you're being nice to this kid because you know you're about to murder her and her entire like world.
Murder's the wrong word,
but it's not, because they do all exist. They are wiping out those. They're wiping out an actual timeline to get back to this sacred timeline. Those resets are killing everyone who exists in that timeline and going back.
I mean,
wow, I didn't catch that.
Do you have to? Is it killing? Is it murder if somebody shouldn't have existed in the first place?
But is it murder if they were going to go on and live a happy life? Like the thing they're protecting against is a multiversal war. But the thing is, like, we are just to have the timekeeper's word for it that having a single timeline is better. So I feel like there's going to be at least some moral gray matter of what's going on. But there's some sort of real weight to the way that Owen Wilson talks to that girl and then hands off the reset button to the agent. And I'm like, he knows what's about to happen to that girl in her timeline. And he's treating her like a real person. So he knows that he's basically erasing her.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely wants to do it with some dignity, and he does it. He just does it fast. It's like if you have to do something like that, just do it. And get it over with. Like,
but she seems plenty real.
I mean, she wouldn't have had that long of a life anyway in 16th century France. I mean, what has she got, like 20 years?
Harsh.
Elliott wants to get recruited by the TVA. He's like, look, I see you. I see you guys. I know what you're up to.
Hey, I see job security. That's what I see.
Let's talk about one of the best characters, Casey.
Boy.
What's a fish? One of the best moments, I thought that whole exchange was hilarious, but it also leads to the fact that Infinity Stones are just a paperweight here.
Yes.
Like it's so trivialized, and they had so many of them.
What a great way to show how powerful the TVA is. It's not even that they're like, oh, we can take away your powers and all that stuff. It's like, oh no, those things are the most powerful things in the universe that you've seen. The ones that Thanos used, yeah, those are just paperweights here. They're nothing.
Yeah,
like that's
irrelevant.
Yeah,
it does like that, and it also shows that they're removed from everything. And then it's just a visual cue to be like, that MCU is moving on from that. It's like, we're not rehashing this, guys. We did the Infinity Stones. We did it well.
Yeah.
But we need to break new ground, because if we don't, we're gonna die.
Yeah.
That's how MCU dies, is if they just keep on rehashing stuff.
Yep. I mean, to some extent, the Marvel Comics, they're doing a story in the annuals this year where different characters are showing up who are powered by the Infinity Stones. And while that may be fine, it is sort of a like, well, I've seen you've done like 3 stories about the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Stones, and you don't go back to the well, especially if you're in movies or TV, which don't have as much stuff. Like, it's one thing to do a comic because there's lots more comics produced, but you only get a handful of movies or a handful of TV shows in a year, unless it's a pandemic, in which case you get like 4 or 5 TV shows in a year, which I'm not complaining about, by the way.
Well, no, you're completely right, because like I remember my dad told me something that at the time I was really upset at. I mean, not that upset, but like, I was like, Dad, why are you're loving all this comic book stuff that's coming out? He's like, well, it's better when they make the movies. And I think what he meant is that, people who read comic books are really forgiving. They may not seem like it, but they are forgiving of a lot of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
People who are just, living their life, just trying to get through the day. If they got 2 hours at the end of the day and they don't really see that many movies, you can't have that much bullshit in your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, people make fun of it, but there's a reason NCIS is one of the most, popular shows ever. It's an easy show to watch, and you feel satisfied when you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, MCU knows that audience. They're like, look, we could always get those comic book fans. It's something DC hasn't figured out. We can always get those comic book fans, but we got to get those casual fans.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't we can't have all this bullshit. We can go on with the Infinity Stones, and we can say, Wanda got her powers from them, and so did Captain Marvel and all that. But you can't go Infinity Saga 2. Like they'll be like, well, I've already seen that. I have no interest.
We have a comment here from Mike, who says, if the series is largely about Loki figuring out who he is and sustains out his identity as it should be, having the Owen Wilson character be a future version of Loki we see in the premiere episode, actually working to help redeem the 2012
I'm going to guess that's
Loki.
2012 Loki.
Yeah, while hunting the rogue evil Loki and somehow coming to some sort of personal catharsis. I guess he's still going on this theory.
So I'm gonna step on this
theory. The idea that Owen Wilson is future Loki.
I'm gonna step on this theory. That's crazy. That's crazy.
No. It's not future Loki.
No, he's not future Loki. He is future Loki in the same way that he's Mephisto.
Will Morris says, if that happens, Mike, I'll credit to you.
Yeah, if that happens, I would be amazed, and that would be sort of cool to see.
Yeah,
man, that would be weird.
I don't see it. I think he's more likely to be a future Quake.
Oh God.
I'm sorry. Did you just mention Quake?
I blame you, Randy.
Did you have that ready?
I did. We used it a few episodes ago.
Oh my God.
We also have this DB Cooper scene that we saw here in the episode, which there was a lot of speculation about the trailer that this was going to be one of the instances where the TVA recruits Loki to basically quantum leap in and play DB Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
But this turns out to have just been kind of a throwaway joke of a bet, between him and Thor.
I love that.
He had to be DB Cooper.
Can I tell you what I think happened? I think in the writers' room, where they're writing on the whiteboard all the ideas, someone wrote Loki is DB Cooper, and they loved it so much that even though it didn't fit the show, they're like, we got to do this, man. Can we just make it a bet? Can we just 2 minutes? We got to do this.
I mean, I completely agree. But what's even better is it enriches the characters because it shows that, man, Thor was such a jackass. He had that bet where it's like, hey, Loki, go steal a bunch of fucking money. It'll be great. Fuck those humans, man.
Yep.
It'll be hilarious.
Yeah. I loved that scene. I was glad to see it revealed that it was basically just like, oh, that's just a throwaway. That's great. What fun.
Yeah. Randy, you also mentioned something about this gum here. Did you find out anything about
I could not find any references to Kabuli. I saw some people saying that they think that the character on Kabuli gum looks like Nightmare, which honestly looks more like Freakazoid to me. So I don't know that I put any stock in it.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if there might be any more to that, but I guess
they did sort of hang a hat on it, but I couldn't find any references that I knew. So
yeah, it's sometimes it's like sometimes a gun is a gun.
Yeah,
it's just like
Oh,
or was it a cigar? Is a cigar?
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I wanted to bring up was we see the hooded figure at the end that I guess you're pretty confident it's Loki, who's burning people in the field, and then picking up one of these devices that allows him to, I guess, explode an entire universe then, according to you, Randy.
That's my guess.
Is that what you think was kind of the play here, to get one of those devices that purges or whatever it does?
Well, it seems clear he's collecting them, because they mentioned earlier that he took the reset from the other team he's killed.
Oh, you're right.
He's gathering up, which makes me think that evil Loki, if that is in fact evil Loki or whoever it is planning to use the resets for something big. Like maybe he's going to reset the entire timeline.
Oh, I think you're right. Like that's the stakes you would want for a show. It's like, it can't just be, oh, he comes to terms with who he is. You got to have something as a backbone to drive it forward. I mean, that was the biggest problem with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It was like, these guys aren't that big of a threat.
I think our antagonist is looking to basically either usurp the Timekeepers or completely overthrow what they're doing, and is gathering up those reset buttons for something else. I also have my crazy out there theory is that the end of this. That's an interesting thought from Rich Murphy that maybe he's going to reset the TVA realm. Because here's the thing: we know What If is coming, and I believe it is the next show on the docket. We know that Multiverse of Madness is coming. I think Loki, whether it's evil Loki or regular Loki, is going to basically erase the TVA so that the multiverse exists again. I think that is where we're going to end up.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was wondering as well. Like, I don't know who to think is good or bad in this show.
Right.
I mean, it's the classic narrative is that we want to root for Loki, even though we kind of know the 2012 Loki is a bad guy.
Yeah.
And we are inclined to trust Owen Wilson's Mobius character, but I don't know if we should.
Right.
And we're told that this Loki or this hooded figure that's messing with the TVA is supposed to be the bad guy, but we don't know if the TVA is good or bad. So right now it's kind of like, I don't know who's bad, who's good. It's just kind of like Elliott was saying, I have to watch more to kind of figure out what's going on here.
So can I point out one of the things I thought is interesting, that the easiest thing to do with Loki is to kind of step around how bad he was early on. Like, this guy killed Coulson, who was a beloved figure, and he killed a bunch of other people. He did all kinds of destruction in New York. And the easiest thing to do would be to sort of soft pedal that, but they didn't. They go in and Owen Wilson's like shows him like, yeah, you stabbed this guy's eye out. Like, it looks like you're enjoying this. Do you enjoy hurting people? And they confronted him with that and had him basically admit that, no, that's me protecting my own weak identity. I thought that was brilliant because it gives us a way to root for the character and to understand, like, yeah, he killed Coulson. He did all these bad things, but it was because basically he's a god trying to prove himself to other gods. Yeah. And I think it was a really good way to make him, like, they don't undercut his story. They don't erase it. But they do sort of highlight it and say, here's why you can sort of excuse it because you like Tom Hiddleston.
I mean, he could have just said, I was being written by Joss Whedon. Like, I think we would have understood it. It's like, yeah, the stuff he's had people doing stuff. Yeah, I can see that.
Well, I'm a villains should stay villains guy. Like, going back to Joss Whedon, I hated that Spike became just because Spike was such a good character. He was such a good character, but I didn't want him to become a good guy. Loki, I think they can do a better job of, like, turning him into a sympathetic anti-hero and making it still feel of a piece, because they've already done it to some extent in Thor Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. But
yeah.
Also, I want to mention one thing. Loki it looks like 6 episodes. It's another short Falcon and Winter Soldier one.
Mm-hmm.
And it is being written and executive produced by Michael Waldron, who has done a bunch of Rick and Morty. And when you say that, it kind of makes sense. Like, this has a vibe similar to Rick and Morty.
Yeah, there's something weird with playing with time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just hope that, this show doesn't get all the Rick and Morty fans, though. Because, like, the fans themselves make Rick and Morty hard to watch. Because I'm like, oh, I like this show.
Yeah. I just hope there's no Szechuan sauce introduced in Loki. We don't need that shit.
Yeah, we really don't. Sorry, that is my...
I doubt that.
My toddler wants to be on the podcast very much. He's like,
get in here. You just gotta click that button to reset him. Send him back.
Oh my god, that would be so useful.
Back to your room. Back to your room. The part where what's her name? The guard.
Yeah. Hunter 15, I think.
Yeah, something
like that. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Where Loki just keeps clicking her and, like, dropping her back.
Yeah.
And she's just getting, like, so just stop, please stop. It's like a little taste of your own medicine there.
I want to know that actress, is it Wunmi Masako?
She's also on Lovecraft.
She's Lovecraft. Oh, is she Hippolyta? No, she's Ruby. Yeah. Oh, okay. She is so hates Loki just instantly, and I wonder, has she had dealings with him before, or is it just that he is the exact opposite of what a bureaucratic cop from the TVA would want to deal with? And I'm curious if there's going to be a relationship.
It could be because, like, Mobius investigates that stuff. He doesn't actually have to get his hands dirty a lot of the time.
Right.
She's the one that has to go in there and pop him in the face. She's like, why are you making this harder? Just let's reset him. I want to go home.
Man, the slow motion punch in the face where she's like, yeah, you're experiencing all the pain in real time, but it's a slow motion. That was a great effect. I loved that.
Yeah, and it's like, what's so great is like they do it, but they do it on the Loki right when he got done invading New York and killed Coulson. And like, I mean, like hundreds of people died in that attack.
Yep.
He deserves that punch.
He does. He does indeed.
Did Tom Hiddleston actually take that punch for that slow-mo? Because that's a good... It lasts quite a while.
What I want to know is Mobius should have asked Loki, why do you look 9 years younger here? What's that about?
Yeah. You aged. What's going on? I mean, overall, very fun, very exciting episode, and the possibilities for where this can go with 5 more episodes. I'm excited to see. I think some of my theories have kind of fallen by the wayside, but I'm okay with that. I'm definitely down for the ride of what this show is and what the tone is. I was going to ask you guys if you have any closing thoughts. Elliot?
You said ride. An interesting thing is that Avengers Campus opened at Disneyland. And TVA Loki actually took the place of other Loki for this week. That they had TVA agents in there. It was like really cool to see.
Yeah.
So if anybody has some time, check out like the stuff on YouTube.
That is pretty cool. What about you, Randy?
Super excited for the ride. I wish Disney Plus. I wish I had a time turner myself, so I could jump ahead 5 weeks and just watch the whole thing.
You're one of those.
I'm one of those.
Would you do that though?
100%.
No.
Yes.
I love that. Like I would say, if they could just release 2 episodes at a time, like I think that'd be perfect. Because like Hulu used to do that a little bit with like the Runaways, and they did it with Cloak and Dagger. Like they would release like 2 at a time.
Yeah,
I looking forward to the show, because one of the things right now with the current media landscape is you can watch everything that has ever been produced. You can read every book that's ever been written. And so it's almost like nothing special. It's like I'm finding myself struggling with that with HBO Max, and it's such a like first world problem to have. I get it, but like it doesn't feel special. Like I sat down and watched The Conjuring last night. Like the devil made me do it, and I was just like, okay, cool. Whereas if I was at the theater, I knew I'd be invested.
Yeah, I get that.
This is appointment TV. This is water cooler TV, and
I just we're in the golden age of streaming. There's going to be another show I want to watch. There actually is. I haven't watched Sweet Tooth yet. I haven't finished up the season of Lucifer. I got plenty to watch. I want to watch my story and move on to another story. I don't want to wait for week to week. I will.
Wait a second. I have to. You're saying this as the owner of a comic book shop.
Yep. And I am a guy who mostly buys graphic novels these days. I am a fan. My it wouldn't work for this because it's only 6 episodes. I am a fan of what Prime has been doing, what Apple TV has been doing, which is to drop 2 or 3 episodes so you get a bigger chunk of what the show's about, and then you then you can do the rest week to week. That's fine. But yeah, I'm just saying I'm an impatient motherfucker, and I wish I had a time turner. That's all.
That's ridiculous. Guys, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up right here. I do want to say thank you so much to everyone who tuned in this week. And remember, if you haven't tuned in, that you can check out our weekly breakdowns and reviews on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time over on youtube.com/MCU Pod. We'd love to have you go and join us. You can hit that subscribe button. Next week, we'll be back talking about episode 2 of Loki, and we'd love to have you join us. You can also support us over on patreon.com/MCU Pod, and we'll do little bonus episodes here or there that you can listen to. You can hear me wildly theorize on stuff and get it wrong like I did the other week. Elliot, thanks so much for joining us. Where can people find you?
Here.
Here.
You can find me on MCU.
Hit that subscribe button. There you go. Randy, what about you?
You can find me weekly at the Roguecast at roguesgallerytx.com and at TV Dudes at thetvdudes.com and monthly at Loose Cannon Comics, which is my comics podcast, and soon to be bi-weekly as I'm launching a fourth podcast about going issue through issue of the G.I. Joe series by Larry Hama with me and my buddy Dave, who we both came in on when we were like 12 years old, and our friend Anna, who is just now reading it for the first time as a millennial. It's been, we recorded like 3 episodes so far. It's super fun. I'm working on production on that now.
Wow. Okay. We'll have to get a couple more podcasts under your belt, I guess. You guys can follow me at Baron Von Grant. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. MCU later.